Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wine with Jimmy channel here on the world of YouTube. I'm delighted to have you on board. This is a wine educational channel designed really to help you enjoy wine more. So we do wine videos, normally aimed towards, of course, wine qualifications to help you study wine for your examinations. Welcome here to a big multi-part series on the wonderful region of Alsace. So here we'll be going through the introduction of Alsace, the location, and then talking about the history. Now, these presentations follow very closely the WSET Level 4 Diploma syllabus with added flair added into it by yours truly. So I add a lot more information here to hopefully bring it more to life and make sure that your studies are very much enjoyed. Now, as always, if you do have any comments or questions or concerns, you can get in touch with me here. The best way actually on this video is to comment on this video on the world of YouTube, and make sure you click subscribe and also the like button. Subscribe for 2 updates a week here on Wine with Jimmy, and also like just because every little helps. If you are social media inclined, you can get in touch with any of the handles at the bottom of every slide. So you'll see here on the slide 9 parts to Alsace. The first 3 parts will be available as free content on the world of YouTube, but parts 4 to 9 are available only on my e-learning portal at www.winewithjimmy.com. So let's rock and roll and look at where Alsace lies within France. So there you are. Alsace is located in northeastern France. And despite its northerly location being around sort of 49, 48 north latitude, it has a warm and sunny and sometimes unusually dry climate, but that's due to the Vosges Mountains, which protects it against the westerly wind. The region produces mainly white wines. 90% of Alsace is white wine, and it's pretty much mostly from single varieties. So about 80% of Alsace is single varieties, with 20% therefore being blended expressions. We'll normally find the white wines being unoaked as well, so you really get a beautiful pure expression of that grape variety or blend found in the wine. We're going to go through a little bit of wonderful history around the Alsace area and really Eastern France and into Germania as well. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the Romans. So by 58 BCE, the Romans had invaded and established Alsace as a real key center for agriculture and viticulture. To protect this highly valued area, the Romans built fortifications and military camps that evolved into various communities, which of course have been inhabited for a long period of time, all the way to the present day. So we have some wonderful establishments here. If you go across the Rhine and you go towards Trier, for instance, established city, key city, established by the Romans, still of course around today. Now, while a part of the Roman Empire, Alsace was a part of Germania Superior, and the oldest archaeological finds may indicate early German viticulture, as we have these kind of curved pruning knives, which are pictured on the right-hand side, which were found in the vicinity of Roman garrisons dating from around the 1st century AD. So moving on after this, we're going to talk about King Clovis and Emperor Charles the Great, Charlemagne, who are pictured here, of course. Now, with the Roman fall, the Western Roman Empire collapse towards the end of the 5th century, we have an emergence of many factions across Western Europe which the Romans would have called barbarians and tribes. However, by this point, they were fairly well civilized. It's the start here of the Merovingian dynasty, which is from 448 to 751 AD. And this began with Clovis, the king of the Franks, who united a lot of Gaul, and Gaul is, of course, the early name for France, under his leadership. The new country of France, of course, takes its name from the Franks, this Germanic peoples who Clovis, of course, was leading. Now, King Clovis converted to Christianity in 496, and this really paved the way for one of Europe's most pious nations, France. Really, that link to the Papal States, very important here, and emerging from King Clovis right at the end of the 5th century. Now, following the Merovingian dynasty, which is Clovis, there is the Carolingian dynasty on the right-hand side, and this is under the reign of Charles the Great, or Emperor Charlemagne. So this is on the right-hand side. He was known as the Pater Europae, or the Father of Europe. He was the king of the Franks, and that's around 768. He was the king of the Lombards in 774. Why? Well, the Pope at the time requested the help of this very important military man, Charles the Great, because the Lombards were becoming a threat. So Charlemagne marched into northern Italy, defeating the Lombards and becoming the king of the Lombards. And that's when he becomes crowned as the Holy Roman Emperor by the Pope. And that's when we have the emergence of the Holy Roman Empire, led by the Emperor in tandem with the Pope, but not always exactly in line with the Pope. So we have another key link with Charlemagne, because there is, of course, court on Charlemagne in Burgundy. Now, we're doing Alsace here, so I won't go into too much detail about that, but of course it's important in the Burgundy section. One thing that Charles the Great apparently did a lot of was drink. And he apparently drank so much red wine that his beard was quite permanently stained red. His wife was not happy about this and is said to have told him to change his habits or change his drinking styles. And he did. He stopped drinking so much red and drank white, apparently uprooted his red vineyards and planted things like Chardonnay. It's a little bit of a story. You need to take it with a pinch of salt, of course. Now, during the 13th and 14th centuries, really after the Charlemagne era, this area, which is today, present day, known as quite a frontier area, but back in those days, it's really in the middle of the Holy Roman Empire, and it becomes a very stable area that's protected against kind of frontier wars. So therefore, it really emerges as a golden era for Alsace for many, many centuries. So in the 13th and 14th century, Colmar slowly became fortified as an establishment, but it needed to because the wine trade was very intense. A major part of the wine here was shipped northernly to Flemish areas, so often towards Belgium and the Netherlands. Now, this Alsace is so important as a cultural melting pot. Everybody knows it's French plus Germanic, but there's a wonderful Flemish influence here too. The volume shipped from Colmar alone was at this time 100,000 hectolitres per year, which is an impressive 40% of the total amount produced today. And by the end of the 16th century, there were 160 wine-producing villages in Alsace. And Alsace is a small area, so that's quite a striking number. Now, the 30 Years' War occurred within the Holy Roman Empire from 1618 to 1648. And this period of devastation was really exacerbated by rampaging armies, by pillaging, by famine and pestilence, and it had quite terrible consequences. It affected not only viticulture, but also, of course, a lot of other economic activities within the region. With the return to peace, the cultivation of the vines gradually began to regain its former glory. However, the expansion of the vineyards back then were mainly due to the planting of high-yielding, low-quality hybrids, and normally on the plains rather than the hillsides. And eventually, these hybrids became quite cemented in the wine production because they were seen as a possible solution to the phylloxera epidemic of the 19th century. So hybrid vineyards became very much the key part of Alsace. Then, of course, we move into the 20th century, and Alsace, of course, becomes a frontier settlement during the First World War, amongst other early wars as well at the end of the 19th century. Alsace is returned to France at the end of the World War I, and the French government orders the grape growers and winemakers here to rip out their hybrid vines. But unfortunately, the Great Depression that followed World War I meant that they were not able to afford this decree. They weren't able to follow it. So they did not comply. And of course, hybridized vines still survived at this point. Then comes World War II. I'd just like to say there is a picture of Adolf Hitler here and the Hitler Youth. Now, we're in no way, of course, promoting this at all, but it's a very interesting point of history about Alsace. So from the moment the German troops occupied Alsace, everything really which was French was outlawed, and street signs were changed to more Germanic. Hügel, for instance, the great winery Hügel and Fil, was changed to Hügel and Son, which is Hügel and Children. And Alsace only had one customer really during this time for its wine. Of course, everything went eastward across the Rhine into Germany. And the Germans really set the prices here. In 1942, the Third Reich sent truckloads of the Hitler Youth into the vineyards of Alsace, giving them a real task. And that task was to cut down the hybrids and replant with better grape varieties, proper Vitis vinifera. Around 75% of the vines in Alsace were uprooted and replanted with more noble varieties. Now, I'm no way promoting anything to do with the Nazis or the Hitler Youth, but it is an interesting point in time because it did mean that Alsace moved away from mass production hybrid vines and then into higher quality Vitis vinifera noble vines. Then Alsace becomes liberated and, of course, returns to France at the end of World War II, and it starts to rebuild. So really, if you just think about what we've talked about in the last 6 or 7 minutes, over a span of around 300 years, it had changed nationality no less than 6 times this area. So remember, it was a real stable area in the Middle Ages, but then becomes a real frontier settlement in the 19th and 20th centuries. Now, at the end of the Second World War, in a ruling in 1945, prepared by the Association of Alsatian Winemakers, they established the Alsace-based appellation, but it wasn't until 1962 that the AOC appellation was officially instituted by decree. And there's a bit of a theory around that this is because Alsace was still emerging from its hybrid days. Remember, those new vines, Vitis vinifera, were planted during the Second World War. So really, immediately after that, the vineyards will be very young. So by the 50s and the 60s, when they gain their AOC in 1962, of course, these vineyards have matured quite a bit more. Now, of course, the fact that we have an influence here because it has been a part of Germania in the past, going back to Roman times. It was part of the Holy Roman Empire, and of course it has the influences from modern day Germany. You will find that there is a rather big German legacy in this area. And I've put 3 of them up here. So on the left-hand side, you will see that, of course, the grape variety is what we're identifying here. So Gewürztraminer, varietal labeling. So leading with one grape variety is very common in Alsace, and that's much more like German. So actually putting the grape on the label and utilizing just one variety. So much more of a Germanic influence. In the middle, you find the flute bottles of Alsace, of course, are exceptionally similar to what you would find in Germany. They are very efficient to store in a certain area, hence why they are utilized by the Germans. And then on the right-hand side, that's a picture of some Riesling grapes. And Riesling, of course, is the key grape variety of Germany, stemming originally from the Rheingau, or at least thought to have stemmed from there. And of course, this is the leading grape variety in Alsace today. But you can also include things like Gewürztraminer in that list, plus things like Muscat as well. Okay, so that brings me up to modern day. That's a lot more history that is included in your syllabus, but I think it really sets the scene and hopefully will help you enjoy the Alsatian series, this multi-part series, more so. The next part, which is part 2, is on the climate, which is very specific, quite unusual for northern France. So we will go through that in good detail. That is available as a free video here on YouTube. Geology also is available as free, but parts 4 to 9 are only available on my e-learning portal. That's at www.winewithjimmy.com. Any comments, questions, or concerns, use the social media at the bottom of every slide or comment on this video below. Please make sure you click subscribe and the like button. If you do find yourself in London, then come and see me at one of my establishments. Come and see me for a class, a glass, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now.